Hey, what's happening, guys? Welcome to Comics Obscurity. I'm your host, Jack Talk Ty. Today we're going to talk about, we all know about Thor, the Thunder God, as he is presented over at Marvel. He's one of my favorite characters, and I especially like what they've done with the female Thor, with Jane Foster. But we're going to go, a little obscure and talk about my actual favorite Thor of them all. And just to give you a little background here, we know that this is a character created by Jack Kirby. I believe his son had said that Kirby was an avid fan of Norse mythology. So all of that mythology that was worked in, all of that came from Kirby. It's obvious when you look at the character. Kirby created the character. And he's just a great, wonderful benchmark character at Marvel. He's one of the cornerstones of Marvel. And, he was Don Blake. The original concept was Don Blake was actually just what he was. He was just a guy named Don Blake who was a doctor who happened to find Thor, the cane that was imbued with Thor's power and transformed into Mjolnir, the hammer. And he was just a normal guy who became Thor. It was later worked out that he actually was the actual Thor and his memory had been removed by his father. And as I said earlier, Jane Foster, who was his girlfriend for a long time, she was the supporting character girlfriend that a lot of characters used to have back in the day, like the Lois Lane type role she played. She's a current Thor. She currently wields the hammer, and she's a pretty cool character. It's kind of difficult to tell where her story's going to end up because she's dying of cancer. And she's got a bad strain of cancer in her. So whenever she transforms into Thor, she has her Asgardian body, which is pure and powerful and all of that. But what it does is when she transforms back to Jane, it removes all the chemotherapy and the drugs and everything. So it just worsens the cancer that Jane is suffering. So it's hard to see where they're going to go with the character. The ultimate end would be for the character to die and Thor to get his hammer back. But I don't think many of us want to see that happen. At any rate, my favorite Thor debuted in the 70s. And I don't remember the exact issue number. It will appear here on the screen, the issue number that he appeared. His name is Red Norvell. Now, physically, Red Norvell resembles what Thor is supposed to actually look like according to the mythology, with the red hair and, that type of thing. His hammer looks a little differently. And he was a TV reporter and these were kind of goofy 70s stories. He wound up in Asgard doing a story, and Odin knew that Ragnarok was coming and Thor was destined to die. So rather than have his own son sacrifice his life, Odin created a new Thor, which is basically Red Norvell. And Red fought our Thor, and he had a little crush on Thor's girlfriend, Sif. And he was just basically a throwaway character, and he was Odin's excuse to have Ragnarok occur and have Red Norvell die, which did eventually happen. And there's other people who have actually made use of Mjolnir. Mjolnir chooses whoever is worthy can win. And we've also recently learned that in a strange way, Mjolnir is female and can think. Mjolnir was formed by a cosmic storm. This is all brand new revelations, pretty much, that have been revealed about the origins of the hammer. And Odin captured this cosmic storm, which was female in nature apparently, and locked it within the mystic ore, Uru, that the elves had given Odin. And that chunk of ore was later forged into Thor's hammer, and the power of that storm is within the hammer. And speaking of storms, a very popular storm, Aurora Monroe of the X-Men. She has been worthy of wielding the hammer. If I remember correctly, I know there's at least one time I read a story with her holding that hammer, but she may have done it a couple of times. And all that hammer does is strengthen her power. They've overpowered these mutants, in my opinion, to the point where it's ridiculous. So Storm, even without that hammer, could conjure up a thunderstorm powerful enough to wipe out a nation, or she's maybe even more powerful than that. You can look up and see how powerful they've made characters like Iceman, who has an almost godlike level of power at this point. It's gotten so ridiculous with Wolverine, but that's a whole other topic. Storm has held that hammer, and we see here Captain America. We know he's worthy. He's held it a few times. He's even worthy in his current incarnation as the Hydra Cap, but again, that's another topic. But even Hydra Cap can hold Mjolnir. Superman, the first and the most noble of them all, Of course he can hold that hammer. It is my opinion. Now, people wonder if the fight between Thor and Superman. In my opinion, Superman would ultimately wipe the floor with him, but it would only occur after he got pissed off enough. Thor would get in some good licks. Of course, Wonder Woman, who is also, she has her own kind of analog. Her lasso is almost as powerful as that hammer in different ways. That lasso is a mega powerful and very important item in the DC universe. And at some point when we talk about other superhero gadgets, we'll get into that lasso and what exactly it is and what it can do, and some funny moments she's had with it. But she has held Mjolnir in the past as well. Now, our final character here we'll look at is a strange little character, and I've always liked the idea of females, the female version of whoever, popping up. We have Thor Girl, and her origin's kind of weird and throwaway. She's from some alien world, and she basically decided to make herself an Asgardian. Her hammer doesn't even have a name, and I don't know what's going on with it now, but there was Thor Girl at one point. And a small handful of us thought that when, the female Thor's identity was still secret, we thought maybe there was a slim chance it was this chick. It turned out not to be. Some of us who read Thor in the late 80s remember when Lorelei turned him into a frog. And it was a little weird story that Mr. Simonson came up with, but it worked. It's just still fondly remembered. And even as a frog, Thor was able to wield his godly power, and he became a frog of thunder, strangely enough. But it was, like I said, it was written and drawn by one of the great giant talents of Marvel, Mr. Walt Simonson, who basically reinvigorated Thor in the 80s at a point where Thor was just a forgotten relic, and Walt Simonson came in and made it fly again. And here one last time we see Jane. Now, Jane's a great character. I have no idea what they're going to do with her in the future. It's interesting to see where they're going with her. And she's one of this new crop of legacy heroes Marvel's doing now. Well, with Riri Williams, and we have Jane now. Even though Jane's been around since the beginning, she's older than many of us who read the book, actually. And this has been Comics Obscurity. We're going to come back pretty soon with some new topics, and I do want to talk about that lasso and some other things. We're going to talk about Green Lantern's ring in more detail as well, and we may even reveal some other stuff about some of the other hammers and the other weapons that Odin has created, and that the other Thors, who each have their own hammer. We'll talk about some of those. Stick with us, leave some comments, and give us a like if you enjoy the series. I have been Jack Talk Ty, and this has been Comics Obscurity. Take care.